Hola chicos, ¿cómo están? Buenas tardes. Today we're going to be working on learning a new verb. Actually, it's not a new verb. You've used it a little bit without even realizing it maybe. But the verb is ser, to be. Now, first of all, that brings up a question. The verb to be, you've already learned the verb to be, estar. But I just said that we're going to learn another one called ser. So what does that mean? Well, first of all, let's just go back to the fact that the verb to be is extremely important in any language that you're using. If you think about English, you can say, I am in North Carolina, I am tall, I'm fine, I'm from Greensboro, all sorts of things. You use I am or to be to express. Now, back in Unit 1A, we learned some forms of ser, or you learned some forms of ser, when you were talking about what you're like. Do you remember the adjectives atrevido, gracioso, inteligente, perezoso, trabajador, deportista? If you remember, to say that you are a certain way, you said soy trabajador, or soy interesante, soy inteligente, soy perezoso, soy artístico. Soy is the yo form of the verb ser. When we were asking the question, how are you, or what, not how are you doing, but what are you like, it was como eres. Eres is the to form of the verb ser. Now, if we have estar, that means to be, on one hand, and we have ser, that means to be, on the other hand, then we have a problem. Now, both of these mean to be, but they're not synonyms. They're not words that you can use in the same situation. This brings up one of the key things when you're learning a new language, is that often in one language you use one word to say various things or one expression. But if you go to another language, you're going to have to take that one expression and say it a couple of different ways. Now, if you think back to the verbs that we learned earlier in the year, dibujar, escribir, montar en monopatín, one of the verbs that you learned was hablar por teléfono. What does hablar por teléfono mean? It means to speak on the phone or to talk on the phone. And then we've used it recently, hablar español. So if you say, me gusta hablar español, I like to talk Spanish, or I like to speak Spanish, is better. I like to speak Spanish. Me gusta hablar por teléfono. I like to speak on the phone. Makes sense, doesn't it? Well, you have the verb hablar in Spanish. But if you look back at what I said, I used two different expressions to say hablar. Me gusta hablar español. I like to speak Spanish. Speak. Me gusta hablar por teléfono. I like to talk on the phone. So hablar, sometimes we use the word speak to say hablar, and sometimes we use the word talk. Now that's not difficult for you because you know when to say use speak or use talk in English. But if you think about someone who's coming from Spanish and all their lives they've used the word hablar, now they have to make the choice. In this situation, like, you're not going to say, I like to talk Spanish. We just don't say that. So a Spanish speaker learning English has to figure, oh, okay, I like to talk with friends, but I like to speak Spanish. So sometimes one word in a language you have to use two different or more expressions in the other language. All right, that's what we're doing now with to be, or to say I am, or you are, and so forth. So there are two different ways to say it in Spanish. So what does that mean for us? Well, there are two steps that are very important in this process. One is we have to learn how to conjugate or change ser to agree with the subject. We always have to do that, and it's irregular. So even though ser is an ER verb, it's not a regular ER verb. You have to memorize the different forms of it. So that's one step, ser, and also do that with estar, which you should have already done. the different forms, yo estoy, tú estás, and so forth. So we have to learn the forms, but then we have to understand when do we use this and when do we use that. What are the situations? So that's what we're going to work on today. Let's review the conjugation or the present tense of estar. Yo estoy. Tú estás. Él, ella, and usted está. Nosotros estamos. Vosotros, although we're not going to use it, just to let you see it, estáis. Ellos, ellas, ustedes están. The present tense of ser. Like I said, ser is irregular. It's an ER verb, but it's not a regular ER verb, so you just have to memorize what the different forms are. Yo soy. Remember that from Unit 1B? Soy impaciente. Soy gracioso. Different ways of saying I am. So yo soy means I am. With tú, tú eres. You are. With él, ella, or usted, it's es. Nosotros somos. Vosotros sois, which we're not going to use the vosotros form. Vosotros is you all, but we're always going to use in class, or what you're learning with me, is ustedes. Always you all is going to be said ustedes, because vosotros is really only used in Spain. So with ellos, ellas, and ustedes, it's not son, this is Spanish, son. Ellos son. Ellas son. Ustedes son. So when do we use ser and estar? On the left you have estar. And this is what we learned in Unit 2B. We use estar to talk about where someone or something is located. Do you remember the expressions debajo de, al lado de, encima de, ahí, aquí? We were using estar to talk about where different things were. So estar we use to say where something is, location. We also use estar to talk about how someone feels or how something feels. ¿Cómo estás? How are you? No. If I say ¿Cómo estás? If I ask you how are you, you're not going to say I'm tall. I'm not asking what you're like. I'm asking how are you right now. So how someone feels, how someone's doing in the moment. We use estar in that situation. Ser. We use ser to say what someone or something is like. So whereas we're talking about how someone feels is something that changes, what someone is like is not something that changes every day or so quickly. It's not your mood, it's not your current state, it's your personality or how you look. Those are the kind of things that we use ser with. So let's look at some examples. Let's go back to estar since that's what you're more familiar with. Estar, like I said, we use to talk about where something or someone is located and also how someone is doing. I am in Colorado. Location. Yo. So what's the form of estar? Estoy. Yo estoy en Colorado. Jorge is in Miami. Location again. Jorge, what's the form of the verb going to be for estar? With Jorge, está. Jorge está en Miami. We are in Spanish class. Nosotros estamos en la clase de español. Talking about location again. We are in Spanish class. The book is under the chair. Do you remember the expression for under? Debajo de. El libro está debajo de la silla. How are you? Okay, we're not talking about location here, but we are talking about how someone is doing. So we're going to use estar. How are you? One of those first phrases that we learned at the beginning of the year, probably your first question. ¿Cómo estás? Or if you were asking me as a teacher, usted, ¿cómo está usted? And how would you answer that? Bien. But to make it a complete sentence, estoy bien, which is the yo form. Now let's look at some examples of using ser. So ser we're going to use to talk about what someone is like, their character, their physical appearance. Something, it's not necessarily permanent, but something that doesn't change like a mood. Okay? Liliana is intelligent. Liliana, what's the form of ser for Liliana? BS. So Liliana es inteligente. I am not funny. Yo, the form of ser, soy. No soy gracioso. Or if I wanted to put yo, it would be yo no soy gracioso. Bernardo and Carlos are lazy. Bernardo and Carlos, two people, they. So what's the form of ser? Son. The word for lazy is perezoso. But remember, we're talking about two people and they're boys. So it's going to be the masculine plural form of the word perezoso. Bernardo y Carlos son perezosos. The green beans are horrible. Las judías verdes son horribles. The ice cream is tasty. El helado es sabroso. Francisca and I are serious. Francisca y yo somos serios. Now, if you were saying it, if you're a girl and you were saying it, talking about Francisca and I as a girl, it'd be nosotras and be serias. But since I'm saying it, Francisca y yo somos serios. Alright guys, so we just went over the forms of both ser and estar. Those are things that you need to work on and memorize. And also we went over when do you use the forms of ser and when do you use estar. And those are things that you need to review also. We went over some examples. I hope that made sense. Just a quick review. If I want to say I am in Spanish, you don't know how to say that unless you know the context. Because how do you say I am? Well, yo estoy. And also, yo soy. Yo estoy means I am. Yo soy means I am. But you use one in some situations, use the other in other situations. Tú estás. You are. Tú eres. You are. But you use those two expressions in different situations. All right, so review this. Work on your homework, the trabajo práctico. It's not too complicated today. It's more the practice with just the forms. But look over it and see how it goes. And if you have any questions, write me an email. Adiós. Cuídense. Hasta luego.